Welcome to the Rubrik Advantage Lightboard series, where we'll be exploring 6 technical areas that set Rubrik apart. In the first video, we'll be exploring simplicity. Frankly, Rubrik as a product was built around simplifying your enterprise data center and making it easier, simpler for increased cloud usage, as most businesses are looking at today. However, simple is actually fairly hard. Most of us in our lives want simplicity, whether it's at a personal level or a business level. But as we look at a lot of products in the data management, data protection space, their design centers were 10 to 15 to 20 years ago. Lots of parts and pieces that have been gradually added onto. So to create something simple actually took Rubrik starting in stealth for about a year and a half. We built layers such as Atlas, scale out file system. Scale out in the data center is hard, as you may know, if you've worked with this. Cerebro, a data management layer, and even Infinity, which handles our UI and our API, where the API is from day one, a first-class citizen with the UI. Now to do that took finding and hiring folks from Google, who worked on the Colossus file system, from Oracle, from Facebook, from VMware, from various data protection companies who actually truly knew how to build web scale, enterprise, as well as even consumer-grade interfaces. Now, so you may be thinking, you've talked about what you had to build to make things simple, but what does that actually mean to me and how I use the product? And this takes me back to when I was data center admin for 7 years. I started as a junior backup admin because no one wanted to do backups, right? I think we've all been there, or maybe some of you have if you're watching this. And then even later as a consultant for about 8 years, where I'm the person on the whiteboard explaining, helping justify and figure out how a product will fit your environment. So the idea that I've thought of over the years is facets of various areas. In this case, it's facets of simplicity. And the first one I like to think about is really focus, because this takes me back to when I actually used to do product evaluations on the customer side and even for our data center portfolio. And sometimes I would look at a product in a company and think about how many things do they claim to do? How large is the company? How long have they been around? Is this actually possible? It may sound great. It may be true according to PowerPoint, right? We've all been there. But is it actually possible? So one of the things that I love about Rubrik and attracted me is starting out with the focus to do something really well. In this case, focusing on VMware, modern data centers, and the cloud, and then building off that very rapidly, but with a focus on building something simple that actually works. The year and a half that I've been here, we expanded to multiple hypervisors, multiple physical OSs, multiple databases. So this isn't a lack of capabilities, but it's an intentional plan of how you build that versus trying to do everything at once and then potentially not do it very well. Next, what is the sales process like in cycle? And this may even sound a little bit odd in a technical video series, but again, it takes me back to when I was a customer and you get these multi-page quotes that all these different line items and things you had to understand. And even when I was on a pre-sales role, an SE role, folks on my team, one of their jobs was to write what was called a human readable description. So the customer would see this 3-4 page quote and be like, what's all this? And you'd actually map out, well, what are all those parts and pieces to make it correspond to the whiteboard that you've done for them. From a Rubrik perspective, because the product is so simple to you to purchase and use, that all goes away. And it makes the licensing simpler. It makes the sales process and cycle simpler. Of course, as well as having good sales reps and good SEs, sales engineers out in the field. That even links into when you start to consume Rubrik day one, that you can get it up and running in your data center, taking backups, ingesting data within 30 to 60 minutes. The way that we do that is we take these components here and more, and we actually tie them together into a single software platform. Then in the interests of simplicity, you can choose to run on AWS or Azure in the cloud. You can run it on server hardware from Cisco and other server manufacturers, but we will sell it to you, deliver it to you as an appliance to make it simple. Right? Not to be a hardware company, but software combined with hardware to facilitate simplicity. And then as you go to manage that, this even takes me back to when I would come in every morning and I'd go and get my Mountain Dew, and then it later changed over to coffee. And you'd see this red wall of failed backup jobs, and you just turn into kind of a little bit of a sad panda every morning. So with Rubrik, we don't have you manage jobs and tasks and schedules and moving data around. We focus on what you and the business care about. You set a policy around how often do I back up my data, how long do I retain it for, where do I retain it, the location and the cost of that, and even a disaster recovery replication. Rebecca, in her video later, will go deeper into this category, but there's a simplicity there. And this is what, for one of our customers, this was actually Compeer Financial, where they actually saw that their average backup admin time per day went from at least several hours a day and went down to sub 15 minutes a day. So when you start to think about that, this is where we see the simplicity. Smaller environments, medium environments, and at scale. But recovery. If I can't bring my data back, I can't use it, I can't leverage it, the backups don't exist, right? So for us, there are capabilities here around using your backups via live mount, not having to transfer the data back without rehydration, as well as even single file search. And search is it's pervasive across the whole platform. There's some Google similarities there. What a surprise. We'll talk about that in a later video. This is where we have one customer that actually talks about how the number of search steps that they usually go through is about 20. For restore is about 20. And with Rubrik, that went down to 2. It's a full order of magnitude. We're going to have fun with math, right? But if you're having to do this every single day, that matters operationally. That simplicity translates to what your employees spend time on. It translates up to the business and how fast you can respond to restore requests, or maybe even delegating those restore requests outside of IT because they're so simple. And last but not least, automation. We've actually kind of talked about automation a little bit here in the realm of not managing jobs and tasks via SLA policies, but also automation where, as I mentioned at the beginning, the API is a first-class citizen to the UI. It's a fully RESTful API. You can do anything in the API you can do in the GUI. And for me, that personally resonates. I used to write scripts and try to automate things. Sometimes you get 90% of the way through and you realize, oh man, I can't, that last 10%, that's got to be sending an email to me or someone else. I didn't introduce a human factor. I want that to run automatically at 2 a.m. in the morning, not finish it when I come in the morning after I've got my Mountain Dew or coffee, that kind of thing. So there's multiple integrations and capabilities that Jaap will talk about in a later video as well, focused around our API. So we've walked through a good bit here as we've looked through facets of simplicity. This may sound good. We're going to go deeper in later videos, folks on the technical marketing team. But what I love here is we have customers who tell us the same thing. A lot of these you can find online. A gentleman at Willis Towers Watson actually commented how when they started with hundreds of virtual machines, as they grew to thousands, even more than 10,000 virtual machines and under management with Rubrik, these principles stayed true, and the simplicity that they embraced and wanted via the modern foundation of Rubrik did not turn into complexity as the environment grew 10, 100 times even. Simplicity is powerful. It's not easy, even hard, but it is worthwhile. As we were presenting recently here at Rubrik headquarters in Cloudfield Day 3, there was a quote from one of the delegates, Jeff Wilson. He put it up on Twitter, which I loved. It was, "Providence has hidden a charm in difficult undertakings, which is appreciated only by those who dare to grapple with them." At Rubrik, we believe we are finding that charm in a field that often has been overlooked, and we would love to tell you more, whether that's by watching further videos in this series or meeting with a local sales team. Thank you.